And I just don't know what we're supposed to do with 40 babies decapitated. How is that a group we can talk to about anything?
Well, obviously, the great moral sickness of the West is its intention to continue moral equivalency between one group of people who wish to defend children and one group of people who wish to murder them as often as humanly possible. I've seen pictures that have not been made public of families burned and babies beheaded and all the rest of this sort of stuff. And this is what Hamas intended to do. This is what they always intended to do. This has been in their charter since 1987. There are no surprises here. The only surprise is that it took this long for Hamas to be successful. But this has been their intention all along. The Palestinian Authority, the Palestine Liberation Organization, pays actual bounties to terrorist families. Islamic Jihad is a terrorist group. And yet the West has spent the last 30, 40 years pretending that there was some sort of deal that could be cut here. I think that the Israeli government was under the impression since 2006, when they completely pulled out of the Gaza Strip. In 2005, they pulled literally thousands of Jews out of their homes in the northern tip of the Gaza Strip and turned over the entire area to the Palestinians, who promptly burned every Jewish home and greenhouse, and then voted for Hamas. They voted Hamas into power. Hamas has been the governing power in the Gaza Strip since 2006, so for 17 years. And they've been launching rocket attacks ever since into Israel. Israel believed that because of the security barrier, the touch fence, and because of Iron Dome, which shoots down the rockets that are fired routinely from Gaza, that they could live with some semblance of at least quasi-normalcy, although it's hard to describe normalcy as you have to run to a bunker every few months for a week or so while rockets rain down on your home, but it was at least livable. Well, what's happened over the course of the last few days is not only catastrophic, but it demonstrates, number one, why there needs to be a state of Israel, why the state of Israel exists, why the notion of a Jewish state to defend Jews exists. It really exposes the moral vacuity of many people in the West for precisely what it is. And it shows more than anything else what evil actually looks like. And so it's been my intention throughout this conflict to show what exactly the Hamas terrorists wish to do, what their government wishes to do, what their sympathizers wish to do in the most graphic detail. They're not shy about it. I mean, what's truly incredible is this is the worst weekend. Saturday was the worst day for Jews since the Holocaust in terms of mass death. And what's truly amazing is that even the Nazis were ashamed enough of what they were doing, at least in the public eye, that as World War II ended, they attempted to cover up what they had done. These modern day Nazis carrying out Einsatzgruppen-style shootings of Jews, murdering babies, murdering pregnant mothers, pulling the fetuses out of their stomach and letting the babies die, still connected with the mother. There's a report of that. These sorts of reports, these are glorified by Hamas. These are touted on social media. The videos that I've been playing on my show are not videos taken by Israelis. These are videos that are taken by Hamas members and then trumpeted around social media. And it's causing celebrations in places ranging from London to Sydney to the streets of New York by a certain group of people and their sympathizers. And evil exists, and it doesn't just exist inside the Gaza Strip. It exists in the hearts of human beings who somehow believe that there's moral equivalency between people who wish to rape women, murder them, parade their bodies through Gaza, and people who want to defend themselves and live normal lives. I mean, it's astonishing. And if the world goes back to that level of moral equivalence after this, if the world somehow in the next few days says that Israel has to stop or has to declare a ceasefire with people who just murdered their children and are currently holding babies, literal 9-month-old babies, in captivity pending their execution, then I don't know. The whole point of the state of Israel is that Jews no longer have to ask permission to defend themselves, and that's certainly the case today.
This is about the atrocities that were unleashed on Israel by this terrorist group on Saturday. This isn't about Palestine and the blockade. I don't see it as about any of that, but that's what the left wants to make it about. And so I want to just spend 1 minute on it because most people don't know the history, Ben, like you do. And you're hearing things like, but the blockade and collective punishment, that's a war crime. Ilhan Omar's spewing that nonsense, saying you can't hold all of the Gazans, all of the Palestinians responsible for the actions of Hamas, of their leadership. And I think, you mentioned it, but it's important just to remind the audience what you just said. In 2005, Israel got all of its citizens out of this area. They got them all out, insisted that they leave at some points at gunpoint and said, take it, have it, it's yours, we're out. And it wasn't until within, 2 years that Hamas won the election, which is a terrorist group, our State Department recognizes that, and started bombing Israel again, that Israel said, all right, we're going to have to do something to prevent this group from getting weapons. And they allow food and so all that stuff to go in, but they try to do what they can to make sure that they don't amass weapons and rockets to unleash on Israel. That's the so-called blockade. Like, this is what now people are saying, oh, look at how Israel's forcing these poor people to live. Israel wasn't doing that. It gave them this area and said, we're out, you're good. It was Hamas that started the murder back in this 2005, 2006, 2007 period. You tell it because you know it much better than I do.
Yeah, I mean, Hamas has been participating in murderous activity since their founding in 1987, 1988, their Muslim Brotherhood offshoot. But the pullout from Gaza is proof positive that when people say that they want context, the context literally does not matter to them, because the fact of the matter here is, again, that Israel unilaterally pulled out of the Gaza Strip in an attempt to create some sort of security arrangement and presumably protect the Jews at the northern tip of the Gaza Strip and allow the Palestinians some chance at electing a government. They then promptly elected Hamas, a State Department designated terror group, in an election that was fully legitimate, as attested to by Jimmy Carter. They elected Hamas. They haven't had an election since, but the polls tend to show heavy levels of support for Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Israel, by the way, has been providing electricity for free to this area. Israel has been providing water to this area. Israel ships in humanitarian goods to this area. Israel, over the last year, has provided 15,000 I won't use the Hebrew, the license that allows them to move into Israel and work there. A lot of people are on work permits inside Israel. If Hamas were not the governing power in the Gaza Strip, and if the Palestinians had chosen a government that actually sought to build, Israel would be, there's literally no one in Israel, no one, right, left, center, who would not wish to build up the economy of the Gaza Strip and turn it into a peaceful neighbor. That would be the greatest wish of the Jews in Israel. They don't have a peace partner. They never have. In fact, they wanted a sewage system in the Gaza Strip, and so pipes were shipped into the Gaza Strip. Hamas promptly took those pipes and carved them. They repurposed them into the body of rockets, into rocket tubes. The cement that is poured into the Gaza Strip to build infrastructure was used by Hamas to build terror tunnels. And this is what Hamas does. I mean, they overtly say this in their charter. Again, it's not as though they're hiding the ball. There are no secrets here. No. Hamas hides behind civilians. Hamas it literally places its headquarters, its military headquarters, is underneath a hospital. I mean, imagine if the United States put its Pentagon beneath a hospital deliberately in order to maximize civilian casualties. And there's plentiful video of Israeli forces calling up members of Hamas outside of a building. They warned before. Historically, Israel has warned people in areas about to get hit, which is insane, by the way. Military targets. They've warned people, get the civilians out before they hit the targets. And there's tape of them calling members of Hamas and saying, get everybody out of this building. And members of Hamas saying, we don't want them out of the building. We want them in the building. That's the whole point. Why do you think that we are locating a rocket fire from inside apartment buildings and behind apartment buildings? The whole goal is to maximize Palestinian civilian casualties so that they can then blame Israel. And then they can claim that some human rights violation is going on after they provoke violence in the first place. So again, the attempt to tie this to settlements is insane, because again, there are no settlements inside the Gaza Strip. The areas that were attacked here have been part of the state of Israel since 1948. And this is not post 67 settlements in the West Bank, in the so-called West Bank, Judea and Samaria. All of the normal political tropes here do not apply. All of the usual lines here about if only Israel had been more generous during, like, none of that applies to the Gaza Strip. And it's utterly insane that anybody is attempting to apply that same narrative, especially because Israel has offered Egypt, for example, control over the Gaza Strip. And you know what Egypt said? They said, hell no, we don't want control over the Gaza Strip because Hamas is in control. There are a lot of terrorists over there. In fact, right now, Israel has been telling civilians to get out of the most dangerous areas in the Gaza Strip pending some sort of attack. And civilians have been rushing down to the Rafah border, which is the border between the Gaza Strip and Egypt. Egypt has closed the border. Egypt will not allow Palestinian civilians to enter the Sinai Desert in order to escape the carnage. Israel is attempting to make provision for those people. Israel cares more about Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip than Hamas does by a long shot.
Mm-hmm. We did a story a couple of years ago. I actually tweeted out the episode. It was like a, Israel-Palestine primer for dummies. And one of the things that I saw in preparing for that show was an AP reporter back in 2014 came out and admitted that the AP building that was in this region Hamas was intentionally letting off rockets right next to the AP building, thinking that we wouldn't target, or Israel wouldn't target this AP building. But that AP reporter eventually came out and said, our AP photographers would go to the hospital and they were basically in on it. They would photograph the Palestinians bringing their young children or babies who'd been hit in a retaliatory Israeli rocket attack. And they would use them for propaganda to put them on TV saying, look at the terrible Israelis, look what they're doing. And then as soon as all the military age fighters who were coming out of the hospital after being treated or going into the hospital with injuries, they would turn off the cameras. The AP was helping the propaganda war so that the Palestinians could get their message out, which is the terrible, evil Israelis. All they do is target our children when, of course, the truth is Israel bends over backwards not to hit the civilians. And the AP was completely complicit in this dishonest message.
They kill their own soldiers in order to save civilians. I mean, this has been the story of Israel for many, many years. They literally put their own soldiers in harm's way in order to minimize civilian casualties in the same way that American soldiers are very often put in harm's way with very difficult rules of engagement in order to minimize civilian casualties in war zones. I mean, Israel, on this score, there's a term in Hebrew called taharat haneshek, which is cleanliness of arms. And that's the basic idea, purity of arms. The basic idea is to minimize civilian casualties. I mean, there are so many obviously telling facts about the politics of the situation. Telling fact number one, there are no Jews living in the Gaza Strip. There are no Jews living in Palestinian cities in the West Bank. 20% of the population of Israel is Arab. There are Arab parties in Knesset right now who are anti-Hamas, who have come out against these Hamas attacks. Fact number two, Israeli Arabs, when asked if they would like to join a nascent state of Palestine under either Hamas or the Palestinian Authority or Islamic Jihad, overwhelmingly say no. They're not particularly fond of the state of Israel, but they overwhelmingly would prefer to remain in the state of Israel than go to these supposed zones, even if there were to be some sort of peace deal, because they understand exactly what the governance would look like. And again, fact number three is that the Gaza Strip has been under Palestinian control for 20 years. And the Palestine Liberation Organization, which turned into the PA, was founded in 1964, before the Six-Day War, when the so-called Green Line did not exist, when there was no Green Line, because all of that territory was being controlled by Jordan. So anybody who's attempting to number one, first of all, any justification of beheading babies, it should show you who exactly is doing the justifying. And I don't believe you. If you're a pseudo-sophisticate who's pretending that you don't understand what this conflict is all about at this point, you're beyond repair. I mean, you're just morally broken, and there's no way to fix that. But anybody who's attempting to fit this into the context of a history and pretend that Hamas is some sort of legitimate political party and legitimate political body that shouldn't be eradicated, I don't know what to tell you. Let's just put it this way. If this sort of nonsense happened on America's border, if what we were seeing on America's southern border were not migrants crossing the border, some of whom have criminal records, some of whom commit acts of violence, but if it were 1,500 terrorists who crossed the American southern border and then proceeded to go into El Paso, Texas and murder like 30,000 Americans, which is the population equivalent here because America is a much larger and more populous country than the state of Israel, I highly doubt anybody would be calling for tremendous levels of restraint from the American government or military in attempting to secure its population.
Okay, let's talk candy. Goods Candies. They are a new sponsor and not your average chocolate shop. Nestled in a small town in rural Indiana, Goods Candies has been serving its community since the Great Depression. Goods Candies takes pride in its farmhouse-style, small batch production using only the finest premium ingredients. Trust me, when you bite into a Goods Candies creation, you will instantly taste the difference. This is a delicious candy. They have indulgent toffees, salted caramels, and all kinds of chocolates with unique cream centers like raspberry, maple, yum, mint, orange, to name just a few. Whatever your pleasure, it's there. Selecting your goodie bag is all part of the fun. They also do customized chocolate bars with your company logo on them or your family name or a message. Could be the perfect client gift or a holiday gift or hostess gift from you. It's unique and it's delicious, and it's a great way for your clients to think about you and your business, or your family and friends to think about you. For our viewers, they are offering a 20% discount when you use the promo code MK2023. While placing your order, the website is goodscandies.com, and their email address is goodscandies@goodscandies.com. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.